Randall, you're one of our heroes on the YouTubes. You were one of our favorite speakers at the Cosmic Summit last year. Welcome to the show.
Yeah, perfect.
Thanks for having me, guys. Except there's one thing I need to get clear that I don't have this yet. I don't understand. I don't know yet.
Yes.
Before we go on, I need to know which one of you is Mike and which one of you is Dave.
I'm Dave.
And I'm Mike.
Okay. Then if you're Dave, we could then deduce that the other guy is Mike.
That's
Right. Correct.
Okay. All right.
Correct.
Now that we got that settled, I'm good to go.
Yeah, we have both basic, normal, regular name. Probably the two most common names in the Anglo-Saxon language. Yeah, Mike
common.
and Dave.
Bill and Tom are pretty up there, but Mike and Dave, yeah. I mean, I said there was a point in my life where I vowed that, okay, no more, I'm not going to allow any more Mikes in my life. There's too many already. I'm getting so confused. But hey, I will make an exception. I will make an exception in this case.
We appreciate it. Yeah. Hey, Randall, I was looking up things to how are we going to introduce Randall Carlson? And Grok says you're let me hold on a second. I want to know if you go by this. It says you're a geomythologist, architectural designer, teacher, geometrician, and geological explorer. Would you say that's accurate?
Yeah, it pretty much covers it. Geomythologist is because I'm very interested in mythology and what kind of insights that we can glean from looking at mythology that would apply to understanding the real world. One thing that wasn't mentioned in that list, maybe it's because I haven't promoted it on the same level, is astromythology. But both astromythology and geomythology is the idea that by going into the various stories of old that have been handed down to us from our forebears and our ancestors and all this, actually contain some very critically vital information about the world and the things that they experienced, the things that they went through, and you know, as long as we understand that the way that the framework, their vocabulary and the symbolism that they use, that, you know, for example, one of the prominent ones might be they're talking about a story about a dragon or a war in the heavens with dragon, with Marduk fighting Tiamat or whoever it might be. This could actually be referring to a cosmic event that people witnessed, or the numerous tales of apocalyptic events, great floods and fires. We know, I mean, because I've been studying paleohydrology for decades now, I mean, I can declare with absolute certainty that, yeah, biblical scale floods are real. Now, what does that mean? Does that mean, you know, a uniform supernatural drowning of the entire planet up to the tops of the highest mountains? No, it doesn't mean that. What it does mean, though, is that when you have peak discharges that are only measured in hundreds of millions of cubic feet per second, anybody who survived something like that would naturally think that the world had been destroyed in the aftermath. And we know from the hard evidence engraved into the geological landscape of the planet, that these enormous flood events, these enormous hydrological events have occurred multiple times. So it's no surprise that we would find myths and legends. Also, there are legends, you know, alternately. I mean, look at how many cultures have these apocalyptic traditions where the earth is destroyed alternately by flood and by fire, right? Well, again, now Cosmic Summit. I mean, what is one of the primary messages, takeaways of the Cosmic Summit is that, hey, from time to time, the heavens come alive with devastating consequences for down here below, including major incendiary events.
Yes.
Absolutely.
You know, what was interesting in our conversation with Danny Hillman this morning, he let us know that there was dozens of flood myths just in the area of Indonesia that are not even documented. So it got me thinking that there's probably hundreds, if not thousands more, that are either lost to time or that we just don't even know about, that are just not documented.
Absolutely, yeah. And I mean, I think already at this point documented, there's probably somewhere around 100 independent flood stories from various cultures, including a rich reservoir of stories that have come down to us from Native Americans traditions. It's a very ubiquitous tradition amongst many Native American tribes. This idea of a gigantic flood that their ancestors survived, in some cases by taking refuge on a high mountaintop, on other instances by building a great canoe.
Yes.
And some of these tales are, the usual way to get around the implications of that is say, well, they obviously heard it from missionaries. But if you go into the documentation of it, George Catlin, the Indian artist who spent, if you know who he is, he spent many, many years with a wide variety of Native American tribes. And in his book, Last Rambles, it's called Last Rambles Amongst the Native Tribes, something like that. George Catlin, very, very interesting book. But he concludes that book by talking about the great diversity amongst language and rituals and ceremonies and belief systems and life ways of the various tribes. But then he explicitly says one thing that all of the tribes that he visited had in common was the story of this great deluge that their ancestors had survived. And look, I think we can say without ambiguity that the last great global catastrophe, North America was pretty much ground zero. And I've documented evidence in the landscape for gigantic flood flows from all corners of North America. It's real. I mean, we're talking about, if you're talking about, let's say the formation of Grand Coulee in eastern Washington, you're talking about a peak discharge of 300 or more million, 350 million cubic feet per second. How do you put that in context? Well, here's one way to do that. Imagine every single river on Earth. Think North America. Think Mississippi, Missouri, Columbia, Hudson, Rio Grande. Think of every river, Mackenzie River, Yukon River. Think of every river. Think of every river in South America, the Orinoco, the Amazon. Go to Africa, the Congo, the Nile, Eurasia, etc. Every river on Earth, all combined, all flowing together once, wouldn't even be 1/10 of the volume of water that cut Grand Coulee in eastern Washington at the end of the last ice age. How do we know that? Well, there's multiple ways we can know that. But,
geologic evidence?
Geological evidence is unambiguous. But, when you see a 1,500-ton boulder that was transported by flowing water, well, that gives you a sense anyway. Now, there are actual formulas that you can use to determine peak discharge, velocity, and so on. And hydrologists and engineers have been using those formulas for decades. And there's been enough empirical data to support, during flash floods, some of the outbreak floods from Yokalaups, which are outburst floods from glacial meltwater, have been documented in the last couple of centuries, particularly in Iceland, in British Columbia, in Alaska, in Tibet, in the Andes, where you had these swollen, very large little ice age glaciers that melted back in the last 150 years, has given us a perfect opportunity to see what happens when glaciers recede, when they form proglacial lakes, when they form glacial dams, when the lakes bust through those glacial dams. And getting the scale of that, we can see, well, here's the work that it does. Creates a recessional cataract, creates a gigantic boulder bar. Then we look at the evidence from 12, 13, 14,000 years ago, and we find things that are orders of magnitude larger. So it raises some interesting questions as to origins. And
absolutely,
that'll be some of what I'm talking about at the summit this year.
Yeah. So, very much so. And it made me think, about how there's flood myths within the Plains people of Canada and in the United States, and how would Plains people have a flood, a massive deluge myth, when their culture and civilization lived in the middle of the continent, right? And it would have to be because of a massive deluge, right?
Well, yeah, you're right. And I could actually, I bet you I could pull up some stuff here that might be interesting to look at.
For sure. Let's go for it.
With reference to North America, let me Just give me. Is this going to be edited at all, or is it?
Yeah, we'll
Yes.
edit it. Yeah.
Okay.
We're recording now, but we're not live, so we have all the time later.
Yep.
We're okay. We're not alive.
We're not.
We're live and living. We're not broadcasting. The tape's rolling, but we're not on the air.
Okay, let's see if I can make this work. We'll do
Last time I looked, there was no deluge coming down the street either, so I think we're good. We're good here in Georgia for now.
Okay.
Go ahead. We'll there we go. You're good.
Okay. So this is one of the I would say seminal events in my life that led me into the study of catastrophism.
All right.
That's what we're looking at right here, this map. If I go, let me see, I'm going to have to shift my glasses here. Right here where my cursor is, it says Flying Cloud Airport.
Okay.
So back in 1969, summer of 1969, was 18 years old, just had gotten out of high school. And one of my main interests in life at that time was rock and roll.
Yeah.
So every weekend that summer, there would be a free rock concert out next door to this Flying Cloud Airport. They had a stage set up. It wasn't actually in the airport, I guess. It was next to the airport. They would have a stage set up, and they would have like an afternoon. They might have 2-3 bands come and play. I won't mention the other two things that go along with rock and roll that were also of interest to me at the time. They were a factor, though. I will say that. So anyway, so I'm at this concert, and I wish, I could, I probably should have opened this in Google Maps, but right here, this is actually an old-fashioned, what is this, a topographic map? I don't know. Anyways, you'll be able to get the point. So during a break in the music, I just was wandering around, and I wandered over, and you can see that right here, this is a bluff right here, right? So that bluff is about 250 feet high, and it goes down to the flat valley floor of the Minnesota River, right? And you can see here that there's another bluff right there following the bluff. Let's see, do I have a closer up image of it? Here's a LiDAR view of the same thing. Let's see, if I go like this, okay, so there's this gully right here. I can actually pinpoint. I was standing right here, and I was looking down into this valley, and maybe I thought, maybe at the time I was hallucinating, who knows. But anyways, I'm looking into this valley, and I'm seeing these terraces across the side, on the other side, a couple of miles away, and I saw you see this little line here, that is the modern Minnesota.
Okay.
So I was looking at the modern Minnesota River, and it had entrenched itself into this nice little version of this big thing that I was looking at here. I'm standing up there 250 feet up, looking out over, seeing these matching bluffs on the other side, and looking down, and I just stood out there for I don't know how long. I mean, this is a long time ago, but I remember going away with this impression that I had for it at that time. Later in life, I learned a term that sort of applied to it, and that was self-similarity or scale invariance. Now, if you open any geology textbook and you start looking at the photographs in there, very often you will see something, more often than not, you will see something in the photograph that is there placed only for scale. You're looking at a geological outcrop and you're thinking, is that 6 feet high or 600 feet high? Well, typically for a larger thing, you'll have a person standing in it. For something smaller, it was always the rock pick. You put your rock pick in the picture. Now, somebody might put a phone in there or their hat or whatever, but something to give you a sense of scale. Well, this was my first intimation of this concept of scale invariance, right? And it was one of those things that kind of went back in the back of my mind and marinated for literally years. But then what happened was, if we go here, you can see that there's there's a little channel that's the modern river, and then there's a very big channel.
I see that. Yeah.
Right. Well, at the time, I wasn't really imagining that that big channel was conveying water all the way up to its brim. But later on, like the next summer I went and I spent, about 4 months just on the road, moving around, sometimes by myself, sometimes with a friend or a buddy. And I was with a buddy, and we had never seen the Pacific Ocean. We'd grown up in the Midwest. Neither one of us had seen the Pacific Ocean. We had just spent, probably a month or a month and a half camping out very close to the Continental Divide, west of Boulder, near Rocky Mountain Park. And we decided that we wanted, it was getting late it was getting into fall. So, we were 10, 11,000 feet above sea level where we were camping. And so we decided we wanted to go see the Pacific Ocean. So we headed out west, wound our way through Wyoming, through Utah. Eventually we made it to Olympic Park, out there in the peninsula, but via the Columbia Gorge. And I just remember going through the Columbia Gorge and being completely, utterly blown away by the landscape and the scale of the landscape. And, there's a lot of narrow valleys that open onto the Columbia Gorge. And oftentimes at the mouths of those valleys, you have these big splayed out debris fans, just on a massive scale. And I remember this impression. The impression was that I felt like I was, in the land of, Gulliver's Travels, where I was in the land of the giants.
Subscribe to Mike and Dave's Multiverse on YouTube, Spotify, and Rumble today.